And we're live. Hello, everybody. This is Prince Tyler. I'm here with Kiyah, and we're going to talk about what's going on in Israel and Palestine. How are you doing?
I am good. I am turning up my volume because suddenly my computer got really quiet. Yeah, I am good. How are you?
I am fantastic. Now, this whole entire conflict has been in the rise of discussion as of late because of recent events, largely in part about what happened on October the 7th, where it's been reported that over 1,000 Jewish people have died. Some of them partaked in, of course, some sort of music festival. And one of the footage that I remember seeing during that whole entire event that actually occurred was a particular woman. I think she was like Jewish German who had like some sort of dreadlocks. And what they did to that particular woman was basically killed her. They put her in like the back of the truck where her dead corpse just lie. And so when I saw what happened in front of my eyes, I guess, it was like very disturbing what happened. So when you saw and heard about the news about what happened on October the 7th, what were your first initial reactions to what happened?
Yeah, so I guess when I first got like a notification that something happened in Israel, I wasn't necessarily surprised that there was an attack because these attacks tend to happen, with just with Gaza and them constantly shooting rockets into each other. I was like, okay, there was an attack on Israel, but Israel dealt with it. They deal with this stuff all the time. The Iron Dome probably took care of most of it. And even if there was some destruction, it probably was relatively minor because the IDF is usually pretty good at handling these things. But when I got onto Twitter and saw, exactly what happened, the paragliders coming over the border, um, the footage of people, being murdered and all of the images, and especially what was especially surprising was that it wasn't even necessarily the IDF or like Israel that was posting this, but Hamas and the Gazan terrorists that were coming over that were like live streaming and posting like very gleefully what they were doing. And that was just like, first of all, seeing the images was extremely disturbing, but then seeing how celebratory and how happy the like attackers were at what they were doing, that was like another level of disturbingness that I just haven't seen before in these types of situations. So it was definitely hard to take everything in.
Right. And as soon as I saw what happened, of course, there were like a variety of reactions to what happened. But one of the groups, and I think you possibly criticized this group in the past, of course, Black Lives Matter Chicago. This is actually an image right here. And I'm sorry it's not like, the best kind of image because it's like an archive because they since deleted it. But basically what happened is like, the paraglider right here, and it says, I stand with Palestine. When I saw that image for the first time, I found it to be incredibly distasteful because, like you were saying earlier, basically they were reporting that the paragliders were attacking everybody. And so when he put that image right there, that just sent like alarm bells to me when I first saw it. What do you think when you saw that image for the first time?
Yeah, I there were a few other groups that, had come out and they had kind of tried to cover up that they were supporting the terrorists. They were kind of like, "Oh, we don't really support Hamas. We support the Palestinians," or "We don't really support Hamas. We just don't like the Israeli government." But this image was very explicitly pro Hamas, pro the violence that happened that day, and I I wasn't necessarily surprised with it coming out of BLM, just knowing they, how I would think they would view the situation, especially with all of the terminology about it being Israel being a colonists or being settlers, and BLM's whole anti-racist thing that they do. I wasn't surprised that they would be sucked into this rhetoric and kind of just actively support Hamas because that's kind of what they do. Um,
I believe there was actually a video that I saw that I think it came out from Vice News where one of the reporters openly interviewed the leader of Hamas. And he basically, and I'm not even joking by the way, he mentioned George Floyd
yes,
in the video.
yes.
And
No.
so when I saw that, I kind of feel as though that there seemed to be some sort of, you can say, unholy alliance between what's happening over there and what's happening with Black Lives Matter. Like, what's your thoughts when you saw that video?
Yeah, I I mean, they definitely a lot of people who follow Black Lives Matter, they are very easily manipulated by an emotional appeal. And so it was kind of, I mean, evil but smart of them to kind of exploit that by bringing up George Floyd, even though it makes no sense. But for people who tend to be very easily persuaded by just emotional appeals like that, it seemed like it worked. There also is this image that is circulating on social media. I don't know if you've seen it, but it's a picture of a fence with George Floyd painted over the Palestine
Yes, I
flag,
have seen
but
that.
it's
All
not a
right.
real image. It's like AI generated.
Yeah, I believe there actually are not just the AI images that you just mentioned, but I believe even in Gaza they have like these sort of wall images of George Floyd and trying to connect it back to, I guess, what they have. And so it seemed to me like they're trying to, I guess, basically view this situation using the lens of intersectionality. And it's a bit much more geopolitical, much more complex than simply just the oppressor versus the oppressed. Now, there has been like a series of buzzwords that I noticed, and I'm going to try to, get your reaction to every single last buzzword, okay? So the first buzzword that I noticed is apartheid. And basically, many people who consider themselves to be, pro-Palestine claim that Israel is basically an apartheid state. And so, what is your personal reaction when you hear words like apartheid?
So that's crazy. So I used to be, when I was very woke. For anyone who doesn't know who's watching the stream, I used to be very woke and very on the far left, and I used to be very anti-Israel and pro-Palestine during this time. And one of the things that I was told was that Israel was an apartheid state. And but this changed when I started to actually look into, first of all, what happened in South Africa, the laws that were there that separated people by race, that segregated pretty much everything in society. It was very similar to, Jim Crow in the US, but just on the national level instead of at the state level. And then looking into the laws in Israel and seeing that Arab Israeli citizens and Jewish Israeli citizens have the same legal protections under the law. There's no segregation. There's not like Arab bathrooms and Jewish bathrooms. There's no like, Arab restaurants and Jewish restaurants. You can eat wherever you want. You can go to the bathroom wherever you want. If you're Arab and you live in Israel and you're a citizen, you can vote. You can run for office. There is a Palestinian Arab person on the Supreme Court there. Like that is not in any way similar to what happened in South Africa or any sort of apartheid that we have seen in the world. But this word, and kind of similar to, maybe not similar to the George Floyd thing, but some of the pro-Hamas like supporters have come out very vocally and actually said that the using the term apartheid is not like, they don't care about the definition of the word. They're just using it because they know that it will manipulate people's emotions, kind of the same way with using George Floyd to get the Black Lives Matter people onto their side. They're just like, well, as long as people think Israel is bad, we will continue to call it an apartheid state, even though that's not what apartheid means. So
Yeah, the second word that they commonly use, I guess, is basically colonizer. And usually, what they would do, like I see in the stream right here, is basically point to that map and say that is actually evidence that the Israeli government is basically colonizing, I guess you can say, what they call Palestine. And so, how would you respond to that word colonizer? And how would you respond to that particular map that we have over there?
yeah, so I can't see the whole map, but I'm thinking it looks like the image on the far left is supposed to be like Palestinian, and then the white is supposed to be Israel, right?
Yes, yes.
So the issue with like anyone who talks about this is that they don't understand history at all, right? There was no Palestinian state before there was Israel and Palestine. There was the Ottoman Empire, and then Britain took over that land. And when the British left, they split it into two areas: the Israel area that was supposed to be kind of taken over by the Jews, and the Palestinian territories that were taken over by Palestine. And the Jews and Israel said, okay, cool, we've got some land, and granted, both of these groups were already in the area. They have been there forever. Like, there was never, the Bible isn't a historical book. Most of it is fiction. But one of the things it does get right is that there were Jews living in this area, Like, this is something that we've seen in tons of historical texts throughout the history, that there were Jews living in this area. They have always been here. But when Britain split up the land between the Palestinians and the Jews, the Israelites, the Arabs said, no, we don't want this. We don't like this, that the Jews are here. We don't like that Israel exists. And we are going to fight them until we can kill all of them and get them out of this area. And so not only the Palestinians in this area, but some of the other Muslim countries around Israel as well. Egypt was involved, Jordan at one point, Syria, Iran, which they're not even really in this area, but they also got involved. They all were attacking Israel for, decades and decades, trying to destroy their country and get all of the Jews out. And Israel said, no, we're not going to allow you to destroy us. And they fought back. And that's what has happened. Right? There was never a Palestinian state where the Jews just came in and said, we're going to steal your land. They were both here. This land was supposed to be separated into a two-state solution. And the Arabs, or at least the Arab governments of these territories, said, we don't like that you're here. And so we're going to keep attacking you until you're gone.
Right. It's interesting you mentioned that, because like another word that I also keep hearing is the word genocide. And right now I'm going to load up something that is really relevant to that particular point about genocide, because let's look at the data right here. Because basically, according to what we see so far, of course, over 5 million population for like the Palestinian people. But I guess like what I'm trying to say, even though it's still kind of loading up right now, it shows in the data that more or less that the Palestinian population has actually increased than decreased over time. And so how would you respond to someone if they claim that it is actually a genocide that's going on against them?
Like right now, absolutely not. Historically, that doesn't seem to be the case either. Again, with the fact that I hate calling them Palestinians, because like Palestine's not really a place. You have like the West Bank and Gaza, and they both kind of have their own separate governments. But
yeah,
both of these groups have always initiated force against Israel, and Israel has always acted in self-defense. If Israel wanted to wipe out the Arabs living in the region, they could. They have nukes. Like, that would be very easy for them to do so. And they haven't. They haven't because they don't want to kill people. They want to have peace with their neighbors in the region. But we do know who has genocidal intentions. The people who are screaming, from the river to the sea, we're going to murder everyone, and who are flying with paragliders to kill people at music festivals. So we want to use genocide in this context of this conflict. It only makes sense to talk about the group of people that has continuously verbally admitted to wanting to eradicate all of the Jews and the Israeli citizens in the area.
Yeah, and I guess one final phrase, again, I've been hearing from these like last month or so, is more or less the idea that basically there's ethnic cleansing going on too. And basically, of course, by definition, that's basically the replacement of one particular group so that they will be much more homogenous. So when you hear something like ethnic cleansing, like again, how will you respond to that particular accusation that they're not necessarily doing that?
Yeah, I think it's back to the two things that we talked about before. Yeah. One, that Arabs live in Israel, have the same rights, live there in peace. Israel is not, trying to get rid of the Arab Israeli citizens who already live in the country. And that if they wanted to get rid of the people who were living in the West Bank or in Gaza, they wouldn't be warning civilians to leave strike zones before they strike. They wouldn't be, they wouldn't have given them weeks to evacuate before they started trying to get rid of Hamas. If they wanted to just get rid of the people in the area, they would have done so already. They have the means to do it. But instead of, targeting the people living in these areas, they actually built an iron dome around Israel just to protect the people who live in Israel. Unlike
Right.
Hamas, who has very little resources, and has put all of them towards shooting rockets into Israel. Right? They're not trying to defend their own citizens. They're not trying to provide for their citizens as the government of Gaza. They are just trying to kill as many Jews as they can.
Right. Now, it's interesting you mentioned earlier about like the state of opinions about how basically they want to eradicate the Jews. Now, this right here comes directly from the Pew Research Center. And I think religion, particularly Islam, is a big factor on why exactly maybe they're acting the way they act. Because unfortunately, these kind of doctrines are basically influential to millions of people. I believe the largest religious group right now, yeah, of course, are Christians, but I think by 2050, I think that Muslims are going to be the largest religious groups by far by that time period. Now, according to what we have right here, it says that, of course, in the predominantly Muslim nation survey, that the views of Jews are largely unfavorable, that nearly all in Jordan, about 97%, the Palestinian territory, 97%, Egypt, 95% hold an unfavorable view towards Jews. Similarly, about 98% of Lebanese express an unfavorable opinion of Jews, including 98 among the Sunni and Shia Muslims, as well as 97% of Lebanese Christians. By contrast, only 35% of Israeli Arabs express a negative opinion of Jews, while 56% voice a favorable opinion. And so it seems as though that the general attitude towards like, Jews is not necessarily viewed favorably in like a lot of these Muslim countries. So what's your thoughts about this Seder right here?
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me.
Mm.
Yeah, just from what I know about the Islamic texts, and I don't remember exactly which book or text this comes from, but I know that there is a verse that has been kind of widely, is it the Hadith?
Yeah, no, don't worry about it. I have the whole entire text, just in case
Yeah.
you forgot.
There's the verse that is like, if you see a Jew hiding behind a tree, you should kill him, and like the trees will tell you that there's Jews like
Yeah,
behind
yeah, yeah.
them.
Now
That
this
one.
one, yeah, this is a different kind of verse that I have
Mhm.
instead of that verse, but it's gonna be like, kind of still anti-Semitic. I'm gonna read it out loud for you. It says right here from Bukhari, volume 4, book 54, hadith number 524. It says, the prophet said, that's referring to Muhammad, the prophet said, a group of Israelites were lost. Nobody knows what they did, but I did not expect them except that they were cursed and changed into rats. For if you put the milk of the she camel in front of a rat, it will not drink it. But if the milk of the sheep in front of it, it will drink it. So it compared, like basically in the whole entire verse I just read out loud, it basically had the Jews turn into into rats. Crazy. But I'm gonna get that verse that you were talking about, the Jews behind the tree. I'm gonna just give me 1 second right here. It's gonna load up.
Yeah. Because the tree one is the one that was actually cited in the original charter of Hamas. So that's the one that I always remember because I'm like, yeah, they were very explicitly yes, this one.
All right, it says Allah's apostle, referring to Muhammad, said, the hour will not be established until you fight with the Jews, and the stone behind which a Jew will be hiding will say, O Muslim, there is a Jew behind me, so kill them. So yeah, it's basically referring to exactly what you were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
It's just mind blowing to me, like, the amount of like, hatred. It's not just like, towards the Jews that this particular ideology is against, but against like gay people, against women. It's like anybody really. So basically, there was like another hadith that I remember reading where it says that more or less, if a gay person was caught doing the exact same actions, like, as like I think Sodom and Gomorrah, then that gay person must be thrown directly from like the mountaintops all the way to the ground. But instead of the mountaintops, what they did for, I guess, modern day terrorist groups is basically use the wolf tops instead of the mountaintops for that particular verse. Of course, there's like many verses talking about how you can basically like, beat your women if they were to do that. There's like another verse where if like a person was caught with adultery, then that person must be stoned for adultery. And it's like a lot of really, really bad ideas that comes directly from it. Right. So
Yeah,
let's go to let's see. There's like another one I think it's like really important to say too, because I remember reading at some point that even during World War II, that Adolf Hitler actually worked with Muslims to go against the Jews too. I think it was like some sort of photograph I saw about that. Like it's just crazy. It's like I kind of feel numb after seeing things.
he was working. Yeah, that doesn't surprise me either. I don't know if you saw there's a Vice article that went viral, I think yesterday, the day before, where they were saying that Nazis were showing up at the pro-Palestine protests, and they were like, but this has nothing to do with not liking Israel. The fact that the Nazis are here is totally unrelated.
Oh my goodness. I think they're kind of like the two side of the same coin, honestly, because they both tend to agree to, just hate Jews. They so it's like, they're more similar than they actually think. There's a video, this is actually done by Judah Butler, who criticized Florida as being fascist, arguing that leftists must have an understanding of Hamas and Hezbollah as social movements that are progressive. So I'm gonna, I'm going, I'm going to play the video. Just
It's like the Queers for Palestine thing.
Similarly, I think yes, understanding Hamas, Hezbollah as social movements that are progressive, that are on the left, that are part of a global left, is extremely important. That does not stop us from being critical of certain dimensions of both movements. It doesn't stop those of us who are interested in nonviolent politics from raising the question of whether there are other options besides violence. So again, a critical, important engagement. I mean, I certainly think it should be entered into the conversation on the left. I similarly think boycotts and divestment procedures are, again, an essential component of any resistance movement.
I just lining up with terror.
Yeah, the feminists for Palestine. There's Queers for Palestine, the new pride flag with the Palestinian colors in it. I saw something that was like sex workers for Palestine.
Oh my.
It's just like, how disconnected from reality can you be? I don't know.
I don't understand it too, because it's just so weird. Now, getting back to, of course, like, the whole ideas, of course, like, I mentioned earlier about the ideologies between, I guess you can say, Hamas and what they do. And basically what happened was, like, back in the 1980s, that's when they started to write their ideas down. And unfortunately, I think according to the data, at least the vast majority of the Palestinians in the Gaza Strip, they voted in favor of Hamas. Now, there are some people who basically argue that Hamas are freedom fighters. How do you talk to a person that thinks Hamas is like our freedom fighters?
Like, all you have to do to disprove that Hamas are not freedom fighters is listen to what Hamas is actually saying they want to do. Like, it's like the people who think Hamas are freedom fighters really want a reason to support Hamas, but that means ignoring everything that they've ever written, everything that they've ever said, everything that they've ever filmed and put on the internet. Like, the evidence is not in their favor that Hamas wants to live in this two-state peaceful society with the Israelites, which is what I've heard a lot of people. I keep talking about Twitter because that's where I've gotten a lot of these crazy things that I've seen. I saw someone who said that if Israel was destroyed, Hamas would replace the land of Israel with a secular, multi-ethnic democracy. And that is what would, and all the Jewish people who lived in Israel would have to become Israeli Palestinians who live in this progressive secular state run by Hamas. Like, people really just are crazy. They don't, but like, they are avoiding the facts in front of their own eyes about what Hamas wants to do and what they're trying to do.
You know, it's interesting because one of the conversations from our world leaders is this idea of a ceasefire. So before we respond to that voluntary, I guess, idea of a ceasefire, let's first hear directly from the head of Hamas about the whole entire issue about that.
Yes.
إسرائيل دولة لا مقام لها على أرضنا. إحنا الدولة لابد أن نزيلها، لأنه بالفعل هي تعتبر كارثة أمنية وعسكرية وسياسية للأمة العربية والإسلامية، يجب أن تنتهي. لذلك إحنا لا نخجل من نقول ذلك بكل قوة. إسرائيل لازم نأدبها، وحنأدبها مرتين وثلاثة، ومش هذا حتكون طوفان الأقصى أول، لا حتكون ثاني وثالثة ورابعة، لأنه إحنا لدينا إصرار ولدينا قرار ولدينا إمكانيات أن نقاتل نعم. ونحارب. لكن كما قلت لك بدنا ندفع ثمن. نعم إحنا مستعدين. معلش بدي أقول لك بشكل واضح، إحنا اسمنا شعب الشهداء ونفخر أن نقدم شهداء. إحنا لا نريد أن نمس لا بالمدنيين ولا أن نلحق الأذى بهم، لكن أوقات لأنه في تعقيدات في الميدان صارت في منطقة موجودة، وكان هناك في احتفال وكان في سكان وفي منطقة واسعة ليست سهلة على امتداد تقريبا 40 كيلومتر. يجب أن ينتهي.
أن ينتهي وين؟ بقطاع غزة؟
ينتهي إلى، لا بتكلم عنه كل الأراضي الفلسطينية.
كل الأراضي الفلسطينية، يعني زوال إسرائيل؟
طبعا. وجود إسرائيل غير منطقي. وجود إسرائيل هو اللي بخلق كل هذه الآلام والعذابات والدموع والدماء. هي إسرائيل مش إحنا ضحية الاحتلال، نقطة وآخر السطر. لذلك ما حدا يلومنا، إحنا شو اللي بنعمله في 7 أكتوبر، في 10 أكتوبر، في مليون أكتوبر، إحنا اللي بنعمل مبرر. It is justified، مبررة.
Yeah, he just said in plain English, it's justified.
Yeah, I don't know if you saw, there was a follow-up interview to this where a journalist asked him, how can you call for a ceasefire when you have explicitly stated that you're going to continue attacking Israel? And his response was, what do you expect us to do? Stop? And it was like, that's what a ceasefire means. Like, you want Israel to stop defending themselves so that you can kill everybody without any pushback? That doesn't sound right.
Yeah, the thing about it, Dill, and I think it's like a video I have saved somewhere, where basically, like, I think one of the leaders at some point, I think around 2008, he basically said that he's not necessarily just want to spread the ideas towards like Israel and make the whole entire state collapse, but wants to spread it towards the whole entire world. That includes the Americas, that would include like Europe and these other countries globally. I'm gonna try to find that video. Just give me hold on, let's see. It's not here, it's X, no. Okay, there it is. I found the link. Okay. I came prepared just in case of something like this. So here's like the video loading up right now. Okay, just yeah, right there. I'm not sure how long it's gonna take to load. Okay.
الله لنفسه ولدينه لتكونوا قاطرة الأمة لمرحلة الاستخلاف والأمن والتمكين، بل والفتوحات الدعوية والعسكرية التي ستفتح عواصم العالم بأسره، وعما قريب إن شاء الله ستفتح روما كما فتحت القسطنطينية ببشارة نبينا محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم. وإذا كانت اليوم هي عاصمة الكاثوليك أو الصليبية التي أعلنت عداءها للإسلام وقامت بزرع إخوان القردة والخنازير في فلسطين ليمنعوا نهضة الإسلام من جديد، ستكون عاصمتهم نقطة متقدمة للفتوحات الإسلامية التي تنساح في أوروبا كلها، ثم تلتفت إلى الأمريكتين بل إلى أوروبا الشرقية، وظني أن أبناءنا أو أحفادنا سيكونون هم الذين يرثون جهادنا وتضحياتنا.
Oh, you're muted.
I'm so sorry. But yeah, watching this video and then the other one previously to this one, like not only I think it's really, really important for people watching this understand this. This is not necessarily between Israel and Hamas. This is basically Hamas against the whole entire world. Just as evident as you guys can see from that video.
And not even just Hamas, right? Like you have the like Hezbollah and the Iranian regimes and a lot of other groups that are agreeing with this and are saying, we want to help you, right? We want to help you take over the world. So it's more than just Hamas. It's all of these, you know, Islamic regimes that are following Sharia law to a T and are following these jihadist calls, trying to or wanting to take over the entire world and especially the West.
Yeah, it is absolutely insane. Now, I remember there was like this tweet. Hold on, I'm gonna find a tweet really fast. I'm not sure if I can find it. Like, let me look right here. I know I posted it somewhere on my Twitter page, but it was somewhere about like, you know, the Freedom of Religion Foundation. I just want to show you guys really quickly what I saw, which I just simply could not necessarily believe when I saw it for the first time. Wait. There's actually a video that was done by Ben Sabiro. I want to play that first, actually.
Oh, this one I haven't seen.
Yeah.
If based on the numbers, more Germans died than Brits in World War II, did that mean that the British were wrong in World War II? Because they did. Many more Germans died than Brits. Based on the numbers, does that mean that Britain was wrong in World War II?
Britain wasn't bombing civilians.
If based on the numbers, more Germans died.
You know, it's interesting you mentioned that point because I think a major point that most people having these conversations about Israel and Palestine is the whole entire issue about casualties. Unfortunately, when we see these kind of images, it's kind of sad to see, I guess, the results of what happened when people are in the crossfire. And so when it comes down to these kind of, I guess you can say, reports about the aftermath, about the casualties, like, what's your personal response when people bring up those particular numbers about how many people in Gaza are killed versus how many Israelites are killed?
Yeah, well, first you have to look at, you know, why are they being killed? And in one sense, you have Hamas, who has told people not to evacuate, right? Who has built their bunkers and things under schools, under hospitals, under these places where civilians are, which is not what any civilized country or any country that cares about their citizens does. They put their military bases out in the middle of nowhere away from civilians just in case they ever get attacked, civilians don't get hurt. But, you know, Hamas wants to use the human shields to get the casualty numbers up because it garners sympathy in that sense. But even just in general, in war, tragically, almost always, civilians die. It's something that happens. And in those situations, like the person who's at fault for civilians dying is the person who started the war. Right? Like, no one would be dead if Hamas didn't attack Israel. If Hamas didn't attack Israel, all of these people would be alive. And Israel trying to get at Hamas and happening to, kill people in Gaza, that's on Hamas. That's Hamas's fault. Hamas has made themselves a target because they attacked Israel, and Israel has to get rid of Hamas, or else, as they have admitted, they are going to continue to keep attacking Israel. So Israel has a responsibility to protect their citizens by getting rid of Hamas. And Hamas has put their citizens in danger by saying they're going to keep attacking Israel. Like, this whole thing is on the fault of Hamas instigating this violence.
There's actually some comments, I guess, in response to you. So I'm going to try to, get some comments, and maybe you could possibly respond to the comments that we have for this live stream. So this comment right here says, I'm going to show it on the screen, that the war started in 1948 was done by Israel. How will you respond to that comment?
The war was started by Israel. So typically people who say this, what they'll say is, again, it's like Israel is a colonial state that came in and stole all of the land from the Palestinians, right? Again, Israel and the Jews and the Arabs have been in this land forever. They have both been there. The land was split up because they didn't really want to live, well, actually, mostly Arabs didn't want to live with the Jews. And so they split up the land. So they said, you don't have to live with Jews if you don't want to. And Jews, you can have your own land if you want. You guys should live next to each other, but you don't have to live in the same land if you don't want to share. And the Arabs were not happy with that. Every single war, every single conflict that has started between Israel and Gaza, or Israel and the Palestinian territories, has been started by the Palestinian territories. Like, if this person wants to come up with one of these conflicts where Israel was the first people to initiate the violence and show evidence of that, go ahead and do that. But you won't. What you will find is the Arabs being angry, them attacking. The Gazans were the West Bank people being angry, them attacking Israel first because they don't want Jews there. And that has been every war and conflict for the last 75 years.
All right, there's like some other comments that he said. So this comment right here also claims, again, that Asenaki Jews are from Europe and Germany. How would you respond to that?
Okay. There are Arab Jews that were living in that area first, and they were the ones who started Israel. Like, immigrants move all the time into different places. If you're saying that only Arab Jews are allowed to live in this area and they should have like North Korea borders where no one else is allowed to move in, I think that's crazy. Every country should welcome immigrants from all over the world, especially because most of the Ashkenazi Jews that came from Europe and Germany were escaping the Holocaust. And we're coming to Israel because Israel explicitly stated, we're not going to genocide against the Jews. So, I mean, again, unless you want North Korea borders around every country where no one goes in or out and everyone stays in their country of origin, I think this is a very silly, thing to say that Israel is bad.
He continues to say that both sides abuse Africans, so should we not support either side? So I know that you said publicly, you consider yourself to be pro-Israel. So what are the reasons why you consider yourself to be pro-Israel? I know you mentioned, of course, all the bad stuff from the other kind of side. So why specifically pro-Israel?
Israel, while not being a perfect country, because no country is a perfect country, and they're with the government acts, Israel is one of the most rights-respecting governments on the planet. They treat their citizens with mostly equal rights across the board. I don't think that they recognize gay marriage the same way that they do in the US, which is one thing that I criticize them on. They don't have Second Amendment, which is something I criticize them on. But they don't have, they don't have Sharia law against where women can't go outside without covering themselves. They are not going to murder you for being gay. If you're a woman, you're allowed to work, you're allowed to run for office. They had, I think, one of the first female prime ministers in the world, right? Them as a government and as a country have really upheld liberal Western ideas very, very well in treating their citizens very, very well. And this is something that all of the Arab nations around Israel have failed to do, stupendously. They have been terrible at treating their citizens with the rights that they need and deserve, and just in order to live their lives, they're just very authoritarian. Netanyahu's speech was just as crazy. I don't know which speech he's talking about.
I don't know either, but I guess what's your personal thoughts about Netanyahu? Because I guess many people have criticized him for his rhetoric. And so what's your thoughts about him?
Him specifically?
Yes.
Again, I think that as long as Israel is, I think that the one thing about Netanyahu that I'm not crazy about is that he does bring up religion quite a bit. And I think that if Israel really wants to establish itself as like a secular state, which it is and it isn't, kind of in the same way that like the US like considers itself like it has freedom of religion, but there's also the like one nation under God thing. Like it's kind of built on Christianity in a sense, but we don't have a national religion. Israel seems to be kind of very similar, where they are secular in the sense that you can practice whatever religion you want there. You're not going to go to jail. You're not going to face any punishments, but they do have like Judaism a little bit in their government and some of the things that they say. In that sense, I'm not crazy about Netanyahu that he brings religion into political issues, but as long as that's not how he governs, that he's not using the Torah to create laws like you have to wear a yarmulke or else you're going to jail or anything like that, I don't have as much of an issue with him talking about Judaism, even though I think that he shouldn't.
All right, we have my friend Ernest right here. He asked, India has Jews. They came from Judea originally. Don't have the right to have a Jewish state.
What do you mean in India?
Yeah, I think, in India, yeah.
I mean, no, they have a right to a country where they can feel safe. That country right now is Israel. And again, Israelis have always been there. They haven't always been in India. I don't think that they should come and just take a bunch of land from India. But
so basically all claims that Israel was created by religious pretext. So how you respond to that particular comment?
I think, again, as long as they have not had a national religion that they are enforcing onto people, I don't see why that's an issue. Almost every country in the world at some point has talked about religion somewhere in their founding. I said the US is very similar. All the founding fathers were Christian. And we have the one nation under God thing, which is annoying, but we've never had a national religion where we're throwing people in jail for being anything other than Christian. So it's annoying, but it's not evil in the same way that Sharia law is, where if you're caught not covering your hair as a woman, they'll throw you in jail.
All right, this comment says that Israel has never willingly given up the land. Thousands of years ago, the land was taken from the Jews, and since then it's been taken by others. Palestinians are the colonizers.
I'm not crazy about the colonizer thing in general. I definitely Israel. Definitely, that land has been taken over by lots of different people over the years. I know the Romans were there at one point, and then there have been multiple Islamic states that have taken over, or not states, but empires have taken over, and the British took over. That's kind of history. All of the land has been kind of taken over by everyone at some one point or another. But I don't see the Palestinians not having a right to exist there because they weren't the quote unquote original owners of the land. I think when it comes to talking about which government, and I do specifically think government has the right to the land, it is the one that is better at protecting the rights of the citizens that live there. And Israel has done a great job at protecting the rights of its citizens and allowing Arabs, Christians, anyone who wants to, atheists, anyone who wants to live there and exist in peace. So I think that Israel is a more legitimate government and therefore should have the land instead of Hamas terrorist organization that should not be ruling anyone.
It's interesting you mentioned earlier about right there. So I'm gonna read it out loud for you. Okay, so it says, if Israel go, what will happen to the Israelis? Simple, they will either become Palestinian Jews living in a multinational secular state, or they leave on their own accord.
Yeah, no. If you let Hamas take over the area, it's not going to be a multinational secular state. It's crazy.
I just Sometimes I feel as though that when I read comments like that, they just don't know what they're talking about. Like all the other surrounding nations, they end up becoming theocracies, like you were saying earlier. And so if it was true that they were to take over the whole entire land, it'll be just they'll all be dead. All be
Yeah,
dead.
all of the Jews would be dead. Every single one. Yeah, there's no way that would work. Now, if Israel took over, Arabs could live there in a multinational secular state because Israel is already a multinational secular state. But Gaza is not at all.
Right. So there's going to be a video we're going to watch briefly, and it's basically about the guy who was like one of the leaders for the Palestinian movement. I think it's really important to, I guess, understand the context about, I guess, during the foundation of Israel and the conflicts that's happened prior to that. So we're going to watch this video as it loads up. Okay. I think it's still loading up a little bit. Yeah, it's pretty long. It's not that we're not gonna watch the whole entire video, just maybe like a few moments or so. Still loading, man. My internet is kind of crappy right now.
I'm glad your video hasn't cut out. You've been like clear on the stream at least from every time you talk. So.
I think the thing about it is that like I use like a Logitech right there.
A religious leader of the Islamic faith, an unlikely ally. But perhaps it is here, as they say, that the enemy of my enemy is my friend. And if we look at the Mufti's journey from Jerusalem to Berlin, it does look that way. In May 1921, the British authorities in Mandatory Palestine appoint him Grand Mufti of Jerusalem. He's named chairman of the Palestine's Supreme Muslim Council a year later. These roles give him control over the mandate's Sharia courts, religious funding, and endowments, and over some of the holiest sites in Islam. It grants him great influence over the Muslim community in Palestine, and he soon emerges as a figurehead for Muslims across the globe. In hindsight, it might look strange.
Of course, it's not working right now.
I saw war.
Oh, and that right there.
Save the children.
I saw.
Strange that the British choose him specifically. But in 1921, he is thought of as a moderate. Yes, he's an Arab nationalist who served as a recruiter for the Arab revolt against the Ottomans in 1916. But he's also been willing to work with the imperial authorities. Before the revolt, he had served in the Ottoman army before switching allegiance to the British. Moreover, he hails from a wealthy and influential family benefiting from colonial rule, and it is hoped that he will maintain the imperial status quo. These are volatile times in the Middle East. After the Great War, the British promised Emir Faisal, one of the emerging leaders of a pan-Arabic federation, that they would get their own country. Arabism, the idea of a united ethnic Arab nation, had emerged at the end of the 19th century. It was one of the driving factors that enabled the British to unite the Arab tribes against Ottoman rule. In parallel, Zionism, the idea of an ethnic Jewish state, was arising. After centuries of persecution in Europe, where most Jews now lived, the Zionists sought a national haven for their people. Among a variety of proposals, most eventually concentrated on Palestine.
By the way, I'm just kind of curious before we continue with the video, what do you think about the idea of Zionism? Because there are various definitions, like, depending on the people, like, how people keep changing words. So, like, what is Zionism to you, and what do you think about that particular concept?
I would say that Zionism is the belief that Jewish people have the right to live in a country that's not going to kill them. And as we have seen, especially recently, like, most countries cannot guarantee the safety of Jewish citizens that live there, or are actively trying to kill them. So I think that the establishment of a state that explicitly says, we will not kill you for being Jewish and we will protect you from being murdered, is what the creation of Israel is and why it needs to exist.
Mm-hmm.
the birthplace of Judaism and still home to a 5% Jewish minority. While many Arab leaders opposed the idea, the Balfour Declaration of 1917 was issued by the British, offering a Jewish state within what would become the British Mandate in Palestine. With these British promises in 1919, Faisal met with Chaim Weizmann, the Zionist leader who had negotiated the Balfour Declaration, and made an agreement that guaranteed a Jewish state within a new Arabic federation, with Faisal demanding that the Jewish state would stay within the area of the Arab independence and be conditioned on such independence. Although the Zionists submit the agreement to the Paris Peace Conference without Faisal's conditions, Faisal manages to forge an agreement with the other Arab leaders, and it looks like both the Arab Federation and the Jewish state might become reality. But it's an illusion. The British, under pressure by the French and their interests in the Middle East, renege on their promises to both Faisal and to Weizmann. The whole thing comes apart around the same time as al-Husseini is appointed Grand Mufti. In the conflict that ensues, the French and British use rule by division by promising various Arab factions different levels of independence, pitting them against each other, and creating an environment where ethnic changes, including Jewish immigration, becomes a greater and greater perceived threat to the status quo. It also works with al-Husseini, who plays along with British rule, but begins to agitate heavily against Jewish immigration to Palestine. In 1928, his Supreme Muslim Council spreads rumors of a Zionist plot to destroy the Muslim holy sites on Temple Mount. These lead to violent clashes a year later, with 113 Jews and 116 Arabs killed in August 1929.
I think this point is actually important to bring up because it's not even before, like after 1940, that the whole entire conflict happened. It happened before the establishment of Israel.
Mm-hmm.
That is crazy.
In December 1931, he organizes a World Islamic Congress in Jerusalem, calling for a boycott on trade with Jews and declaring Zionism an aggression detrimental to Muslim well-being. The conflict is continuously seeded by the British, still tolerating limited Jewish immigration to Palestine, with both Zionists and Arabists increasingly vocal and violent in their demands. With the British, as always, unwilling to commit fully to one side, the Mufti sends out feelers to Hitler instead. A week after the passing of the Enabling Act in March 1933, the Mufti meets Heinrich Wolf, the German consul general in Jerusalem. Wolf's record of the meeting is as follows. The Mufti made detailed statements to me today to the effect that Muslims inside and outside Palestine salute the new regime in Germany and hope for the spread of fascist and anti-democratic leadership to other countries. A month later, at a second meeting near the Dead Sea, the Mufti and Palestinian sheikhs express approval of the anti-Jewish measures enacted in Germany. Still, at this point, the relationship is limited to mutual rhetorical support. Al-Husseini despises the Jews, but would still rather see a political than military solution. In 1933, he refuses a request by Muhammad al-Qassam, a Syrian preacher and Arab nationalist, to join a jihad against the Jews and British. On the other side, Nazi Germany has little desire to be seen meddling in Middle Eastern politics. They are now solving their Jewish question by encouraging Jewish immigration to Palestine. Upsetting the British would jeopardize this. As such, in June 1933, they declined to assist with setting up a Nazi-inspired Arab nationalist party. But al-Husseini will only sit on the fence for so long. By the end of 1935, the situation in Palestine is deteriorating rapidly. Al-Qassam is shot dead by British police in November and becomes a martyr for the cause. The next year, on April 19th, a general strike is called. Husseini initially dithers, but on 25th, he takes leadership of the newly formed Arab Higher Committee, which leads the protests and calls for an end to Jewish immigration. This Arab revolt quickly descends into Muslim versus Jewish violence. The British outlaw the Higher Committee and issue a warrant for al-Husseini's arrest in July. he flees Palestine in October 1937. Husseini finds refuge in Syria and Lebanon under French mandate. Under pressure from French authorities, he flees to Iraq in October 1939. It's here that he once again crosses into the Axis orbit. Iraq is an independent monarchy headed by a pro-British regent, but many government ministers and army officers are pro-German, and the country has become a haven for exiled nationalist leaders. Al-Husseini soon falls in with a group of army officers under Rashid Ali al-Gailani, who are planning a coup. In preparation, al-Husseini sends his private secretary to Berlin in January 1941 with a letter to Hitler. He stresses the role that a pro-German Iraq could play in disrupting British communications and in supplying oil to the Reich. With German troops fighting in North Africa, Hitler is interested. He responds on April 3rd that he recognizes and supports Arab independence and that if Arabs were to fight the British, he would provide military assistance. The coup breaks out on April 1st. With Hitler's attention on the upcoming invasion of the Soviet Union, he sends little more than a token contribution from the Luftwaffe, along with some shipments of ammunition. The plotters are initially successful. Rashid Ali installs himself as prime minister, but they are decisively defeated by the British and Transjordanian forces in May. In the aftermath, al-Husseini flees Iraq. He makes his way through Iran, Turkey, and Italy and arrives in Berlin on November 6th. On the 28th, he is invited to meet Hitler. The two men establish their common enemies, the British, the Jews, and the Bolsheviks. Husseini assures Hitler that Arabs are ready to cooperate with Germany with all their hearts. Hitler, however, refuses to give a written commitment guaranteeing future Arab, particularly Palestinian, independence. Hitler states that it's too early for these considerations, but that once Germany has destroyed Judeo-Bolshevism in Europe, the Reich's objectives will be to destroy the Jewish element in the Arab world. Far more interesting to Hitler and the Nazis than any notion of Arab independence is Husseini's potential as an anti-British propagandist. The Germans have already been targeting the Muslim world with propaganda since 1939. And that year, an Arabic language radio station was established in Zizen, a small town southwest.
Okay, I'm sorry that you kind of disconnected for 1 second.
Yeah.
Your mic is still, yeah, there it is.
Sorry, I missed a few minutes because, yeah, my Wi-Fi just randomly dropped, but...
No, it's no problem. Like, basically what you missed was they were just talking about how basically one of the Arab leaders was just working together with Hitler to basically establish, like, you know, against the Jews, against them. So it's not much that you're actually missing, but it's like really, really crazy because even from the very beginning, just from that documentary, this seemed to just like the whole entire idea of going against it is largely driven by Jew hatred. It's just sad. So I guess the final kind of like, you know, comments we can do, because like it's like, you know, 2 more minutes till an hour is over. But do you honestly think there's gonna be like a 2-state solution in your lifetime?
A 2-state solution? No. Not as long as Hamas is in power. Not as long as a large majority of the people living in Gaza and the West Bank don't want Israel to exist. You know, in order for there to be a 2-state solution, there has to be an agreement to peace on both sides. And right now it looks like neither of the kind of the territories, Gaza or the West Bank, wants that. So I don't see how there could be a 2-state solution unless we just continue the way that it has been, where, you know, Israel has these insane defense mechanisms up against protecting from these two areas. But, you know, how long can you actually be neighbors with people who are constantly trying to murder you? Like, as we've seen, that just didn't really work. Like, Hamas made its way out of Gaza, despite the Iron Dome, despite the fencing and the IDF presence at the border, and killed 1,400 people. So I don't think that that's really possible in the future.
I believe, like, even at some point, you know, usually, I guess in these kind of conversation, they bring up the fact that there was like a mass migration of Palestinians to like these other surrounding Arab nations. As you can say, evidence of like, you know, the Jewish state basically oppressing the Palestinians. But I think from what I read, is that basically it was like what happened was the main reason why there was like a mass migration was largely because more or less the Arab nations, like the Arab leaders across the nations, actually asked them to go in those particular countries under the pretense that they would get their land back. And by the time they beat their butts, I guess they couldn't necessarily keep their promise. And so I also heard that also during that time period, I think particularly during the 60s and 70s, that when they had like of course like Egypt, Jordan had the Palestinians into their particular territory, they also caused conflict too, and that's the main reason why I don't want to have them either for refugees.
Yeah,
So,
that is one thing that no one seems to be like talking about is how Egypt, not only do they have a massive wall, you know, but on that border with Gaza, but they also have boundaries underground so that they can't tunnel into Egypt because they're like, we don't want to deal with this. Like our country has got done with the whole terrorist thing, and we're not fans. We want to have peace with Israel right now. You know, Hamas is crazy. Please don't come here and cause chaos.
yeah, it's like nobody wants them. Israel doesn't want them. The surrounding Arab nations don't want them. So I guess like if hypothetically if Israel were to defeat Hamas and I guess they have a new chance to start over again, I think I have very, very little hope that it will just stay peaceful.
Yeah. No, not I don't think so either. It comes down to less of a military thing. Like once Hamas is out, it has to be like an ideological change to people who are there. If they want to continue to live in the area, they have to stop wanting to murder people. And if they don't, then like they're either going to end up in jail or dead themselves because Israel has a right to defend itself against people who are trying to kill them. So you're either going to have to get over the fact that there are Jews living in the area and live there peacefully, or go somewhere else, or something bad's going to happen because you have these murderous intentions. And hopefully the people, especially the kids who live there, you know, they hopefully don't inherit these ideas from some of the adults who are living in the area, and maybe they are the change, you know, maybe it is the kids, but from the way that I've heard the education system works there and the way that they are indoctrinated from such a young age to be militant jihadists, I also have a lot of doubt that that's going to be the change. So
yeah, it's like you kind of lose no matter what. Like even after they would defeat Hamas, you're gonna lose because they're still gonna be like brainwashed, and then you need to deprogram everything that they have been taught since they were little, and have a whole entire new generation of people who basically encourage, I guess, the ideas of critical thinking. And so maybe a solution, if they were to defeat Hamas, is to basically elect leaders that don't necessarily have these sort of murderous intentions to go out and hurt Jews because they're Jews, and actually allow something that, leader that's more democratic. And that way, these sort of things could settle down.
Yeah, that would take, again, an ideological change in the people who are living there to not elect people like that. And I don't know.
It's like no matter what you do, you lose. Like basically, of course, like earlier we were talking about the casualties. Like, if Israel doesn't do anything, it's still their fault because they can't do anything out of self-defense. If they don't do anything, it's still their fault because they're just existing. So it's damn if you do, damn if you don't.
Yeah, like if either they allow themselves to get destroyed or the world has turned on them. I mean, one thing we didn't talk about in this live stream was like the UN refusing to condemn the October 7th terrorist attack.
Do you have a video link for
that? No, there wasn't a video. There was a post that had like the countries that voted for it and against it. But I don't know if there's a video. I can see if I
Yeah,
can pull it
because
up.
I think I've seen a video based upon that because unfortunately they were basically voting against what they were doing.
Let's see if I can pull up. I can find the video, and if not, I definitely have the list of countries that voted for and against.
It was mostly, I think, Arab countries that voted against them. But the rest that like voted in favor of Israel was, I think, mostly Western nations.
Yeah. Okay. So this is the list of countries. I can send to you really quickly.
It's possible to share the screen if you can do that. Like, go to like start screen. Oh, there it is. Never mind. I'm gonna share it myself. Never mind.
Okay.
It's all right. Just give me 1 second. Still loading. By the way, out of topic, it's just so weird that this site is now called X.
Yeah. Page doesn't exist.
No, it doesn't exist. Oh,
what?
No.
I just pulled it up. What do you mean? Right here. Okay, maybe I can share my screen then.
Yeah, share your screen.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like tap on share screen and I'll just bring it up.
Okay. Present share screen. Oh, I don't have a monitor, so let's see. Is it just going to share? Oh, here we go. Haha. Okay, wait, can you see it? Oh,
yeah, I can see it. Yeah, I'm going to add it.
Go away. Okay. Go away. But yeah, they were not allowed, they couldn't get 2/3 of the votes to condemn the massacre that happened on October 7th. And someone, I think I saw someone in the chat saying it was mostly Arab countries. And it looks like that might be the case.
Yeah, it seemed to be, just judging from your screen, it's mostly Arab countries because it's, let's see, Algeria, Central African Republic, Bolivia, Congo, China, Egypt, let's see, Indonesia, Iran, Iraq, Libya, Malaysia, Niger, Sudan, Turkey. Like, yeah, I can see the pattern.
So the UN is just like overwhelmingly like Islamic theocracies in China.
You know, what's interesting about China is that the situation with the Uyghurs too, because they are doing really awful things against them. I think with the concentration camps and how they treat those kind of people, it's crazy. 2 more questions, I guess, from the chat, and then we're gonna leave the stream. Okay, so the first thing, I guess, the radical left that calls literally everyone's Nazis are supporting and protesting for a group that wants to eradicate the Jewish people.
This just goes back to the fact that like most of the people who are like, they don't know what words mean, right? They don't know what genocide means. They don't know what apartheid means. They don't know what Nazi means. They just throw around words because they're like, this kind of sounds bad. I'm just going to throw it out there because I don't like this thing. I think that's exactly what happens with a lot of people on the kind of the woke far left.
And I guess the final question we're going to respond to is this. It's directed towards me and you. Ernest asks, like, do you believe that removal of Hamas will be better for the Palestinian people and the region's security and peace?
I think it's a start. It's definitely a good start. But again, I think that if it, you know, what we're seeing from polls is that the majority of people support Hamas, then like you cut off one head, 2 heads grow back. Like the hope is that they don't, whoever takes over next is not as bad. So I would say it's a good start to get them out of power, but then the people who live there have to decide that they don't want a repeat of this again.
All right, so that is the stream. So thank you so much for coming on my channel again. You should come on more often. Like your channel, you actually add so much of my channel by you coming on.
Okay, yeah, we definitely should do more streams. This was fun. Well, a serious topic, but I like talking about this stuff and like, you know, clearing up some of the
Yeah, I'm sorry. Like, I'm sorry if the whole entire tone of the whole entire stream was like, you know, kind of silly, you know, because sometimes you have to laugh at the craziness.
Yeah.
But yeah, check out Kiyah's Facebook, not Facebook, Twitter page, and then she also has a TikTok page. You also have a website called Data Over Dharma, right?
Yes. Data Over Dharma on Substack.
All right. When are you gonna open your YouTube channel?
It's still in progress, but it's coming in the pipeline.
Like you're the only one on TikTok that makes common sense. You need like a YouTube channel to make your ideas more out there.
Yeah.
Okay. So thanks again for coming on, and also thanks everybody for watching. And so take care, everybody.